Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
Hey, John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and such a pleasure every week to talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of companies ranging from Netflix to Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, LendingTree, OpenTable. Go check out the archives. There's lots of great episodes for you. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. Quick shout out to Carl Smith at Bureau of Digital, who has helped introduce me to so many great people. And today's episode is no exception. Jason Rosenbaum is his name. He's a partner and COO at Crowd Favorites, an independent boutique digital transformation company that helps do software development for established and startup brands. If I butchered that, then I'm sure Jason will help point that out in a second or so. Basically, they create really complex websites for companies and for people and help connect the digital experience to the human experience, which is something that's really relevant today for so many different companies that haven't been online or that are moving online or realizing that there's less of a divide between those things, the online and the offline experience. So we're going to talk all about that. He's also got a really interesting background, having done acting for many years, worked on a bunch of different startups in different industries. So we're going to get into that in a second. But first, of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise 25 Media, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. If you want to learn more about how we do it, go to rise25media.com, or you can email us at support@rise25media.com. All right, Jason. So let's start with acting. I want to know, like, what was that experience like? And I want to get to also the relevance of it to what you do today, because, I cut my teeth in politics. I remember going door to door, facing rejection, people slamming doors on my face. And now I'm glad that I did it, because rejection is just such a great tool to experience, especially when you're younger. And possibly there's no profession that experiences more rejection than acting, because you have to go and try out and face it right to your face. So tell me a little bit about your acting career.
Yeah, certainly I don't have a proclivity for like things that are highly successful, right? It's either startups or trying to be an actor. It's like, could you pick the longest odds possible to be successful? No, I always had a love for the movies. When I was a kid, it was something that I was brought up with by my folks, and so it played a big role in our household. And so I got that bug early on, and probably the best parental advice that they ever gave me was when I was ready to drop out of college, that they said, "No, why don't you stay and finish, and then you can go do whatever it is you want to do." So that was
now that you've got this secure BA in English that you can fall back on.
That's right, John. That's right. Because if you remember,
I say that as a fellow BA in English holder.
I was going to say, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, but in 1999 when I graduated from college, an English degree, meant you were maybe going to be a teacher. That was pretty much what they thought that you were going to be. No, acting was great. I mean, I think, certainly the rejection part probably is the most significant, sort of life lesson you take from the experience. I mean, definitely developing thick skin in general is probably just good for most people as they go through life, as they sort of bang their head up against the rock of life, right? So develop some calluses is always a good thing. It also makes you care less about being accepted, which allows you to be more creative and innovative with how you're expressing yourself. Not just, and this doesn't just apply obviously to acting, but you're asking about relevance in business as well. And I think that certainly applies there. I think, if you're a believer in what you're bringing to the table, that's different than maybe what the next person is going to bring to the table. And you really put it out there and you give it your all, and you're able to sort of let your inhibitions go. I think the product that you're able to deliver to whoever it is you're delivering it to is unique and differentiated. And even if they're not buying it, I think you'll stand out. And at the end of the day, I think that's what a lot of relationships are about, because we meet a lot of people all the time, every day, even more so now virtually. Right. So, so yeah, rejection was definitely a part of that learning experience. I also think, getting comfortable with failure. I'm a big believer that mistakes lead to success, not the same mistakes over and over again. Right. But, we encourage people at Crowd Favor, make mistakes, make new mistakes. So that's the trick, right? Make as many new mistakes as you possibly can. And that's how you learn, those mistakes, those failures, which are really just precursors to success, right? I mean, you walk in there, you figure out, you get feedback. Hey, well, I didn't like this. I didn't like that about your audition or whatever it is. You didn't have the right hair color. Well, I can't control that. You're not 6'5". I can't control that. So you start putting away things that you can control and that you can get better on. And then you also put away things that you can't control and you're able to move past. And that just brings bringing it back to the relevancy of our business. I think you're able to bring a more optimized experience to whoever it is you're engaging with at that time.
Yeah. I don't want to gloss over how hard it is to be a working actor because, I grew up in Los Angeles where the joke is every waiter is a struggling actor, right? Sure. And it's not a joke, like, especially in Los Angeles. New York,
that was me. I was in Los Angeles. I was bartending out there.
And what was that like, doing auditions during the day, working at night?
Well, certainly easier when I was in my early 20s and I had a lot of energy and was really excited about everything at that time. I will say, I never lived in California, so I moved out there right after school. I got a very boring job as a mutual fund analyst at GE Capital, so I could make some money. And then I moved out to California with my girlfriend at the time, and it was different environment. Los Angeles. I'm a New Yorker. Obviously, a very different experience. Different groups of people, different types of people. It was high energy. I remember when I first moved out there in 1999, I didn't get a cell phone until like 2000, end of 2000. And my agent would leave answering machine messages. I'm really dating myself now, like on where my next audition was. He'd be yelling at me to get a cell phone. What do I need a cell phone for? Wasn't, like I said, not too up on the technology at the time, but yeah, I mean, I think, the experience out there, it was hustle, right? I think you learned how to, I learned also very quickly, what my brand was, what worked, what people were looking for from me, and what they weren't looking for from me. I was very much like the beer guy, the boyfriend, Hollywood will very quickly sort of pigeonhole you as quickly as possible. Right. And so, but, you're just trying to make it, and you're struggling and you're just trying to get by. So you're going to take, pretty much whatever is going to come your way. And, as you start to become more self-aware about what's working and where you're finding success and what's not working, where you're not finding success. And then is that overlapping with what you actually want out of it? And I think, one of the reasons I wound up leaving that industry was that overlap started to get further and further away as I got a little bit older. And the things I really wanted to do, I wasn't getting access to do, but the things that I didn't really want to do anymore, I was having, I had plenty of access to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also the experience, I mean, not just the acting, but, what do you have to do to actually survive? Right. And that's what led me into bartending and the hospitality industry. And you and I were talking about that earlier, just how hospitality and retail, I had jobs in both. Shout out to the Mondrian Hotel and to Abercrombie and Fitch in Santa Monica.
Did you work there?
I did.
As did I. Did. That was my first job on 3rd Street Promenade at Abercrombie and Fitch. Yep. Right after college. What year? What was it?
99.
Wow. For me, it was, I think it was 98, actually. Wow. That's so funny.
Yeah.
What a small world.
I went in there to be a floor sales guy. At the time I was in decent shape. And, and they were like, oh, you graduated college. You should be a manager in training. So, I wound up doing that training program. And best thing about that job was taking the kids off the floor and then going to a college campus and, recruiting.
Yeah, I never did that, but that would have been an awesome job. Yeah,
it was
funny.
Very
like
cool.
They said the same thing to me about management. Like they offered me at one point. I remember I turned it down because I didn't want to pursue that opportunity, and I knew if I did, then I probably would not pursue other opportunities.
Yeah, and that's what I realized after I went through my first holiday season managing a retail store, like a flagship store west of the Mississippi type of retail store, where you realize I never want to spend another Christmas in retail ever again. But invaluable experience, right? Customer experience, customer success. And the hospitality part of it, bartending for a lot of years, which I did, you learn how to read a room. You learn how to understand what people want before they know what they want. And I think that has definitely translated well into my roles later on in my career, for sure.
There's such great skills that you learn from waiting tables or from bartending, from that kind of face-to-face interaction with people, social etiquette cues and stuff that you learn incredibly valuable.
I use restaurants all the time as a metaphor for our business with the team all the time. We want to have certain, type of like reservations out for a while. That's our pipeline. We want to be able to, you can provide great service and great food and a great experience. There may always be a customer who's unhappy for whatever reason that they're unhappy. I think, your job is to create a business environment or a work environment where your team and also, new customers are ready to come in if a current customer isn't happy and wants to move on. That's part of life too, right? So there's a lot to learn from those industries.
We were talking beforehand about being open to different opportunities, and you were playing softball on Sundays and you end up meeting someone who becomes your business partner, and you were very early on into the cannabis industry. We're talking 2008, 2009. I don't think it was, I think maybe, legal for medicinal
not on
purposes.
the East Coast.
Yeah.
On the East Coast. Yeah. So, there were only really medical dispensaries in California and Washington and Colorado, I think, at the time.
So what were you selling through a website?
Right. So interesting, right? So the obviously no flour or anything like that at the time. That was considered to be way down the road.
Send you to jail for doing that.
Absolutely. Sure. But you could see the groundswell, and you could sort of see where things were going, especially economically, right? You could see that local governments were eventually going to need this kind of revenue. And, we really tried to bring a medical angle to it, right? Very up and up. It was really about, so the website was really like three-pronged website. The first was like a white pages, or like a business directory, where if you were a dispensary or you were maybe somebody who was supplying a dispensary with security equipment or plastic containers or lighting or whatever that went into dispensaries, right? If you were a t-shirt maker, whatever it was, like you could list in our directory, right? Then there was an e-commerce aspect of it, which was like a marketplace where we could feature certain items. If people in the white pages wanted their stuff featured in another section, they could sort of pay for that placement. Again, this is 2008, so bear with us, right? And so, and then the last thing was a strain library, which was actually really cool from a functionality standpoint at the time, where, you could basically type in your ailment or whatever was bothering you, and then it would sort of kick back to you a list of strains that you could then take to your dispensary and say, hey, I'm looking for this or whatever it is, because I have chronic pain or I have insomnia or whatever it was that was going on with people at the time. So,
and this kind of functionality that you're talking about here would be much easier to build today compared to back then. You probably had to hire a team of developers to put that together.
So it's really interesting. So the team we wound up hiring is my current team today. My business partner today wound up building, it was their biggest website at the time, but wound up building out this website for us, which I think was like $35,000 back in 2008, which was a big deal. Big deal to us, because that was a lot of money as a startup, as you can imagine, right? But yeah, that was actually how I was able to meet Kareem, my current business partner.
Interesting. And I'm curious to know, okay, so you've done a series of things that I don't know if to say they'd be inadvisable, but maybe some family members would frown on. So there's the BA in English. There's the years of struggling actor, bartending to pursue this passion. From that to now the cannabis startup. What is it like? What are the discussions like with family and friends at this period in time?
Family actually wasn't too bad. We had made our deal, graduate college, and they're very supportive, and I think they believe in my abilities, right? So I think for them, they're very biased. Oh, he can do whatever. So whatever he does, he'll be fine, right? As long as he finished school. Friends were a little bit different. I went to boarding school in Connecticut, went to Lafayette College here on the East Coast in Pennsylvania. Most of my friends had very, what I quote unquote, sort of normal lives and jobs after college. It was a lot of finance, lawyers, that kind of engineers, that kind of stuff. Not a lot of people were entrepreneurs. And so I think for them, it wasn't so much the what, it was it was usually economic concerns, right? Why are you doing this? Why not just go get a job? You can go get a job. It pays well, blah, blah, blah. But I learned early on that that doesn't really work with my personality that well, right? And I'd done the corporate thing a couple different times, and it just didn't vibe with what I was looking to do. And yes, there's probably a part of me organically that probably looks for things that are, again, difficult to achieve success with. And I tell people
you're drawn
all the time,
to that. You're drawn to that type of stuff.
If it's not hard, then it's not really worth doing, right?
Right.
Exactly. So
right. Too easy to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's good self-awareness.
Yeah, it's good. And I'm not one of those people either who's like a martyr who's like, oh, well, now I have a built-in excuse for why I can fail. Because I'm not big on ultimate failure either, right? I'm a competitive person, competitive with myself. And so anything, I play golf for the same reason, right? There's something that like I'll never master. Doesn't matter how long I play, how many hours I practice. I could quit all work tomorrow and do nothing but play golf, and I'll never master that game. And by the way, neither will Tiger Woods or anybody else, as great as they are. But that's the draw to it for me, is that it's hard and most people can't do it well. And there's always room for improvement. I think it's that pursuit of perfection, quote unquote, that really drives me. Yeah.
For some people, that means when they start to achieve some success, then they self-sabotage. Is that a fear for you?
No, only because I'm a restless person to begin with. So like if I feel like I've achieved, so for example, when I've moved from place to place or different kind of business to different kind of business, most of the time it was because I really felt like I had kind of left it all on the field and there really wasn't much left to give at that point. On top of the fact there really wasn't anywhere for me to go anymore. I kind of taken it to where it was going to go. This was as far as it was ever going to go. And it was time for me to move on. The entity I'm leaving behind, whatever it is going to go on, that's fine. So for me, no, I staying idle I'm not good at that at all. So, as crowd favorite certainly has achieved more success in the last 10 years since I've been there. The challenges just change, but I don't think they go away. And that's part of what I like about it. Right. And I think it's, sorry to bring the golf thing back, but it's like, once you break 100, I'm not going to self-sabotage me so I don't break 90. And then I want to break 90. And once I break 90, then I want to break 80 and, so on and so forth. If I can ever break 70, I am quitting and going pro, but yeah.
So the back to the cannabis startup.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't a great time. It's never a great time to start a startup, or maybe it's always a great time to start a startup, but nevertheless,
it's always a good time.
You were doing it 2008 to 2011, which was the financial crisis time period there. What ended up happening with that business?
It launched. I think my business partner and I had different visions on where to go and how to ultimately monetize it. And so, eventually we just decided it was in the best interest for me to move on. And I had, fortunately, I think 2 weeks later, like I had mentioned, I got a call from my partner now saying, hey, look, I've got this business. I know it can grow. I'm just not exactly sure how to go about it operationally. And I said, all right, let me take a look at it. I took him out for a beer on the Hermosa Pier in Hermosa Beach there. And I think it was the second pitcher of beer that convinced him, well, not the first one, but the second one, that convinced him that I had an idea about how we could go about doing this. And so that's how it went about. But yeah, I think it's always a good time to start a startup, by the way. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I think if you believe in something and you're going to fill a void and you're going to create some positive impact and you're passionate about it, go for it. That's what I say.
What did you see about crowd favorite, or what became crowd favorite? What was that? What did you say over that second beer? Or second
Yeah.
picture of
So I
your.
took a look at the business model that existed at that time. And it was, that when I found it, it was, it was a small company. It was maybe 4 or 5 people at that point. And basically everybody was working out of my business partner's living room at that time. But the opportunity was clearly there, both because I think he had identified open source software as something that was definitely going to take off, and certainly content management systems being something that was going to be necessary, not just for the down market crowd and the individual small business owner or whatever, but for the enterprise. And we really started to switch our focus more to enterprise services and enterprise clients. And that was really interesting to me, to kind of go up market a little bit and try and take a small company and grow it to serve the likes of, some of our clients today. So.
Right. Yeah. Now, in some ways it seemed like that was something brand new for you, given your background. Selling to enterprise is a kind of a different skill set, right? Was that a
not just selling
to
enterprise? The whole thing was new to me. I didn't know anything about, I don't code. I'm not a technologist. I've never done a line of code in my life, in my life. I think but I like new things. Nobody ever really teaches you how to be an actor. You can take classes and, I had the luxury once of meeting a very famous and decorated actress. And I got a chance to ask her, like, what's the secret? Right. And she was great. She said talent. She said, you either have it or you don't. And she said, you can take all the classes you want and they'll help hone your craft. You either have it or you don't have it. And so you're this big block of talent. And if you have that talent, that's awesome. And all these classes and all these things, all this reading material and all this stuff that you're going to learn, that's going to carve away and make you into something that's a lot prettier and a lot more polished than you are now. That talent was always there. And that's sort of how I look at these opportunities too. I mean, I think I'm drawn to things I don't know that well because I like to learn.
So leading to that, that's a good
Yeah.
segue into, in 2014, you decided to do a roll up, an M&A roll up. You buy a bunch of brick and mortar companies and roll them up into one.
Yeah.
Not something that you'd done previously. So
Nope.
What inspired that? And also the other thing I love asking people about is, how did you learn it? Like, did you have mentors? Did you have coaches? Did you have peers that you were able to lean on when you did that?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, for all the bluster of, I like new things, and I don't go in there blind. You got to do your homework, and you definitely have to do your due diligence. Not just when you're doing M&A, but in general, when you're doing anything. Certainly having a father who was a CFO of publicly traded companies and growing up in that environment helped a lot growing up. In fact, when Kareem and I first got together, he thought I was an MBA JD because of the questions that I would ask and the types of conversations I would have. I'm not either. So I do have a little bit of a business background. And I had come out of working at Coty Beauty in their marketing and operations departments, and had seen them go through some M&A. So I had some exposure to it. We'll also say Kareem had a bunch of exposure to M&A in the 90s and the early 2000s through the internet sort of boom that was going on there as well. The WordPress community is a small space, and that opportunity really came up. Again, it was a relationship. There was, Alex King, who had started Crowd Favorite in 2007. He was looking for somebody that he could trust in sort of handing over the reins of his company to, that he had built after 7 years. And we had established a really great relationship with him over the years, attending conferences. And I think, it wasn't just about the technology and the alignment there, but it was really about alignment of who we were as people, right? I big believer in that, that whole, values are important. They're important in business just as they're important in life. And so creating those opportunities and creating those relationships were huge for us. And we were able to get that done in 2014. It was challenging. I definitely
all the same year that you acquired these different companies, or?
Yeah, we had done two. We did two within 6 months of each other in 2014. One was Crowd Favorite out of Denver, which was obviously had legacy doing enterprise WordPress work. And was, I think, the original WordPress agency for the enterprise. And then we also had picked up a design UX company out of Phoenix about 6 months later. And what was interesting about this is that both of them were brick and mortar, very cult of personality, very flat organizations. You had the two owners at the top, both of whom, one was a developer, one was a designer, but they were just the senior people who had a lot of talent, eventually had too many customers, started hiring people, became business owners, right? The same old story. So yeah, we had to integrate those two teams within 6 months. I would say my background, or the lack of a background in it, probably helped more than it hurt, because I didn't know what I didn't know, which was probably good in a lot of cases. But I learned a lot, and we haven't done another one. We're always looking. And in fact, I'm in conversations right now with a couple of potential acquisitions, but we take our time a little bit more than we used to. And I think really understanding how things are aligned before you go in to understand what the effort's going to be on the integration is really important. That's what I pulled out of that experience.
Now, in retrospect, would you do it the same way? Would you do 2 acquisitions back to back like that?
I'm not an always or never person, so I won't say never. I would never do that again. I would say that I would probably take my time a little bit more. We were in a particular spot in 2014. So sort of coming out of, that aforementioned financial crisis, the digital world had started to pick up again. And, we see these cycles with our clients where, every 5 years or so, they're either bringing in production resources in-house because they don't want to pay vendors like me anymore because we get too expensive, or they're kicking the people out of their in-houses because they just don't want to manage these weirdos that they can't understand anymore. And so it's so expensive and such a time drain, they're just going to go get a third party. So we were one of those cycles where they were looking for agencies. And I think a lot of agencies grew, were sort of born at the end of the 2000s for this reason too, because that was another cycle where a lot of clients were like, I don't want engineers. Like we're not a technology company. What do I need engineers for? Like they're weird and whatever. I don't know what to tell them to do. Let's go find engineers and pay them outside, right? And then eventually that always winds up turning around because we were talking about rates earlier and people raising their prices. And as that starts to happen and, suddenly a client will check in and go, wait a minute, I'm paying, how much for a WordPress developer per hour? And if I extrapolate that out to a 2,000 hour a year person, I'm paying how much a year for a WordPress, that kind of thing. So yeah, but that's the never ending cycle that we're in. So
now in terms of crowd favorite and how you position yourself now, it's interesting. You don't call yourself a WordPress, development agency at all now. Yeah. You really, it's a focus on digital transformation.
Yes.
And I've noticed that a lot. There's a lot of companies that came out of this like very bloody red ocean of WordPress development work, which became very competitive. And then they realized they needed to kind of position themselves differently. So talk to me a little bit about how you figured out how to articulate what you do today.
Yeah, I think open source software is something that's just in our DNA to begin with, right? The opportunity of access and opportunity and democratized code. And so I think philosophically, we're very attached to open source software. I think,
and WordPress is one of those.
100%. Yeah. But it itself as a platform has evolved dramatically in the last 10 years. I think a lot of people talk, oh, it's 42% of the web, and this, that, and the other thing, and it is those things. That's true. And I think with those kind of statistics and with those kinds of, marketing talking points that the platform has, it attracts certain types of clients. And I think for us, what we started to see is the problems that we were looking to solve for our clients and for their clients. We started to find that platform was great to a point, but that we could really start doing even more with things like Laravel and JavaScript, even doing things in other platforms and other CMSs, which aren't even really CMSs anymore, as much as their application frameworks. And now, of course, the rise of the digital experience platform, which is very much a 25-cent marketing term that's out there for all of us that we're all using right now. But basically using our software implementations as middleware to connect complicated systems while providing the front end experience that's great and dynamic for whatever it is that the client is trying to achieve. I mean, websites in general kind of fall into, I'm going to get killed for this because I'm not a technology person, but I'll say it anyway. I think they fall into kind of three buckets, right? I think they're sort of a marketing bucket, an e-com bucket, and a membership bucket. I think most clients are looking to either get more eyeballs on their website and have their website perform better, or they're looking to sign people up as a member on their website for gated content or whatever it is that they're looking for, or they're looking to convert sales through their website, right? In terms of e-commerce. I mean, there are probably other ones out there that I'm not articulating, but I think those three are really the three that we see and that really drive things forward. And for us, we're a platform agnostic company because CrowdFavor doesn't position itself as a technology solutions company. We're a business solutions company, right? So instead of saying, oh, we work in this one platform, and this platform, if it has to fit for you, we're gonna force you into it whether you want to or not. And I think for us, about 3 years ago, we started to make a little bit of a pivot more towards a consultancy and a strategic organization as much as a production house, right? Mm-hmm. So let's identify your problems that you're facing, and then can we solve your business problem through digital? I'm not going to force you into WordPress. And also, quite frankly, I don't think clients really, I talk about this all the time, I don't think clients really care that much about the technology that they're buying, whether it's WordPress or Drupal. They just want they want to press the button. They want it to work.
It's the old saying about the client doesn't want, a drill. They want a hole in the wall, quarter inch drill, quarter inch hole in the wall. Right.
Right. I use the light switch on the wall as my example. Like, the client cares about where on the wall it is. They care about the color of it. They care about the design of it. What they will never care about or value, because they'll never understand it, is the complexity of the wiring in the wall behind the switch coming up from the street and how that all works. Because at the end of the day, the only functional thing they care about, when they press the switch, the light turns on.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's the same with us. And so when you're marketing our kinds of services, getting a little bit away from just the, what do we do? Well, we deliver websites, but like you were saying earlier, it's a saturated market, especially in the WordPress space, especially in open source, right? So
we're running a little short on time, but I do want to ask you a little bit about just the talent acquisition struggle right now. Or I don't know if struggle is the right word, but that's something that a lot of agencies are focused on. A lot of companies are focused on right now at this strange period in time as we're coming out of this pandemic. We're recording this in late August of 2021. So what are you guys doing in order to ensure you have, good talent, retain good talent, lower turnover?
Yeah, 100%. So I think you hit the nail on the head. So there's two aspects of it, right? Acquisition and retention. And certainly I think, we're going through the great resignation, I think they're calling it right now. I think for a company like us in our position, I think first, the most important thing to do is sort of, to start with, is sort of know what you're capable of, right? From a financial standpoint, right? Really understand salary bands. What can you afford? What can't you afford? What are you willing to sort of extend on? What you're not willing to extend on? And I think for a company like ours, I don't really try and compete too much on the dollars side of things and on the salary side. And I think we pay perfectly competitive wages. Our turnover is not very high. We're fortunate in that respect. But at the same time, I don't think a lot of people are really looking for that. I think that what a lot of people are looking for in terms of retention is, are they in a safe environment where they're supported, where they're given the opportunity to grow, where they're challenged consistently, right, to do better and better work, and where they're given some creative license, right? I think those are things that, I think especially in development more, it's both art and science. It's not just science. I think people think developers sort of don't have a creativity to them. I completely disagree. I think the best ones absolutely do. And they will solve those problems for you optimally. So, for us, I think one of the things we just implemented into our system is we utilized our client acquisition methodologies and really mirrored them a lot for talent acquisition. So, there's a marketing campaign that we have to put out there about what it is like to work here. Again, I was saying earlier, just talking about what you do. We deliver websites, or we deliver digital strategy, or whatever it is, right? What you do, that'll get you so far, right? But I think people buy people. I don't think they buy things. And I think that if you demonstrate who you are and why you do what you do and how you do what you do, again, if you're trying to reach, millions and millions of clients, that's not what we're into, right? We're trying to reach the right clients that align well with us and that we align well so that we can provide optimal value. And so same thing with the talent acquisition. How do you market to attract? I talk about Nike a lot, right? Nike doesn't market their sneakers. When was the last time they actually talked about the laces or like the sole or the material? They talk about experience. They talk about what it feels like to wear Nike stuff. And they have brand ambassadors that represent that feeling so that when customers come by, they go, I want that feeling. I don't even want the sneaker. I want that experience. Right. And I think for us, very similarly, this year we implemented, charitable giving program that the company started, right? Because we've come through the pandemic well. We're fortunate. We've achieved some success in the last few years. We want to give back. And this is where I talk about digital and human, tying together. It's not just on the client side, but it's also how we act and how we behave and what we do. And I think we'll attract people who will be like, oh, I love a company that, they're going to pay me well. I get my matching 401k, I got dental, medical, like all that stuff, right? But they're also good people trying to do good things. And I think that's just as important.
Yeah, that's great. All right. I want to wrap up with the last question that I always enjoy asking, which is I'm a big fan of gratitude. So if you look around at your peers and your contemporaries in particular, others in your industry, however you want to define that, who do you respect? Who do you admire that's doing good work?
Yeah. It's a great question. Well, first I want to give a shout out. I think, and this is going to be cheesy and t-shirt material, but a big shout out to my team. Right. I think the people at Crowd Favorite, I'm so grateful to them, and they are my peers because as I mentioned earlier, like I'm not a designer or a developer or a project manager or any of those things. And without them, it wouldn't be possible. And obviously without our clients, it wouldn't be possible either. So obviously grateful to them and our strategic partners as well. When I look around the landscape of companies that are doing it well, or the companies that I sort of follow and are interested in, AmericanEagle.com, not the clothing company, believe it or not, but AmericanEagle.com is another digital agency. They're doing some really interesting work. I also appreciate how they're marketing themselves. I found that I've noticed they do a lot of television advertising these days, which is really interesting and probably a byproduct of the fact that we were in a pandemic and a lot of people were home watching TV all day long and working from home. So pretty smart stuff there. And they also have a great partnership and clientele stable that I really admire. And then the folks over at 10 Up are doing some really interesting work, not just on delivering for clients, but I also think on growing their organization and how much they're paying attention to culture and talent acquisition and retention. They're doing some interesting things over there, hiring some really good folks as well. I think our friends at WP Engine, who we have a great partnership with, another hosting company.
We use them.
That is going through tremendous amounts of growth. The folks over there, Lisa Box, Heather Bruner, and the crew over there, just doing really amazing work. They're just great people. So there are really just a lot of great people out there right now in this space. And I have to say also, I'm really encouraged by the community's commitment to not just talking about diversity, but we're actually seeing it come to light. It's something that we're very focused on, obviously, inside of Crowd Favorite, but also just across the community. It's nice to see a group of people and not just talk about it when it's a topic that's hot, but to maintain the conversation and stay committed to the conversation. It's the right business decision.
Yeah.
You have more people solving problems from different angles, you're going to solve problems better. And that's really the business we're all in. So
Jason, thanks so much for taking the time here today.
Loved it, John. Loved it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Come check us out, obviously, at www.crowdfavorite.com. Feel free to find me up on LinkedIn and Twitter. Sorry, no Facebook, no Insta, no TikTok yet. So, but yeah. And obviously Jason at crowdfavorite.com. If you want to email me or reach out anytime.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
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 And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.